Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday night Luke Live Online on Wednesday, because I'm Father James Diluzio. Today we have Luke chapter 22, verses 47 to 53. Now, I do want to offer a little more commentary on the conclusion of last week's gospel portion. It was the agony in the garden, and Jesus tells the disciples, get up and pray that you not undergo the test. Now, I commented a little bit about it, but it's worth repeating. What do we mean, do not undergo the test? Is God always testing us? It's like we're taking GEDs or SATs or GREs or whatever it is that's always constantly evaluating our knowledge and our abilities? No. Remember that these are English translations of sometimes confusing Greek phrases, and know that we don't undergo the test. That was part of the more literal English translation of the Our Father. We said, do not subject us to the test is a very literal translation. The tradition over centuries has been, and lead us not into temptation. And then again, we debate and pray and argue, well, why would God be leading us to temptation? God wouldn't lead us into temptation, or this whole concept of God's testing us. We're tested. We see that phrase in the translations of the Hebrew and in the Greek, both the Hebrew scriptures and the Christian Testament. Is God always constantly testing us? Some people find it a helpful metaphor, but in the end, I think it's not helpful that God is giving us our SATs all the time. Are we going to get into the college of heaven? A much better translation, and we're talking about this now, is Lord, let us not fall into temptation, and help us not fall into temptation. We're praying, some of us are praying the Our Father with that phrase, do not let us fall into temptation. So that's really what's going on. We, in fact, do see that the disciples are going to fall into temptation, and they are going to give in to the worse, the darker aspects of human nature. But it's all there to expose it. That's part of the purpose of why the tragedy of the cross becomes a experience of faith and liberation, that God forgives all of these things. But it's important for us to know when we give in to the darker side of human nature, so we know human nature, so that we're continually turning to God to say, help us with this. So with that, we'll begin with our pericope today. So while Jesus was still speaking, a crowd arrived, and in front of them was one of the 12, a man named Judas. Oh, my goodness, I'm tongue-tied. And in front of them was one of the 12, a man named Judas. He went up to Jesus to kiss him. And Jesus said to him, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? His disciples realized what was happening, and they asked him, Lord, do you want us to use the sword? And one of them struck the high priest's servant's ear and cut off his right ear. And Jesus said in reply, stop, no more of this. And he touched the servant's ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the high priests and the temple guards and the elders who had come for him, have you come as against a robber with swords and clubs? Day after day I was with you in the temple area, and you did not seize me. But this is your hour, the hour of the power of darkness. So we'll offer a little commentary here. Again, we've mentioned many times why Judas is the one who betrayed Jesus. The importance of, again, Jesus telling us he's entered into every aspect of the human reality, including deep betrayals for those we love, those who have loved us, and he knows, he understands. Again, didn't have to be Judas, because the hostility towards Jesus was already reaching its climax. He would have been arrested one way or another. But these are, again, part of the mystery of providence. God didn't make Judas do it, but acknowledges how we give in to our darker natures. Most of the commentary over the centuries is that Judas really thought he was doing a good thing. He thought he was forcing Jesus to finally use his miracles against the hypocrisy of the religious establishment, against the Romans, to really assume his power, get the Romans out. All these possible motivations for Judas. Again, a great lesson for us from the temptations that we're fall into. The disciples fall into it. They use the sword. One of them uses the sword, cuts off the high priest's servant's right ear. Again, Luke wants to always emphasize the healing compulsion, if you will, the importance of healing in the gospel. He alone has Jesus healing the servant's ear. The others, Matthew and Mark, they just want to get on with it. They want different points to make about the incident and the passion, to go into other elements. The Holy Spirit inspired each of them in their own way to paint these portraits. But again, we acknowledge Luke's gift of the centrality of healing. It's part of our life's journey. Can I heal myself? Be healed of my guilt and regrets and difficulties? Can I then extend this healing to others? Because that's what God gives me. I need to extend it to you, to be about healing in every possible way: physical, emotional, psychological, spiritually. Then Jesus speaks to the high priests, the religious leaders. He understands they've fallen into it. At one moment, they were saying, yes, you're the fulfillment of Torah. Yeah, this is true. We believe everything you're saying. This is what our faith is. And yet suddenly they fall into wanting to have an enemy, wanting someone to blame. What is it that they're afraid of, is basically what Jesus is saying. Well, you were with me in the temple. We agreed. What is this now you suddenly need an enemy? What are you afraid of? Where's the anger coming from? What's going on with you? But this is the power of darkness. God allows the human nature to be seen at its worst. It's not just one group of people. It's not just the context of the political and religious power, but power in itself is something that we're always asked to question. This started at the beginning of Jesus' public ministry, right before he starts with the temptations in the desert, and the devil offering Jesus power and glory, and all its illusion and all its propensity for manipulating and controlling and oppressing people. So here we have it again. It's all coming together. It's all coming together, and we need to find the insight and the courage to say, yes, Jesus, yes, God, yes, Holy Spirit. Life is filled with conflict. We can despair, or we can say, yes, it's another opportunity to show our stuff because of our faith, because of your gifts of grace. We can do this. We can do it together. So as we address all the problems of the world today, each in our own way, to take at least baby steps of courage in healing our relationships that are broken when the opportunity allows it. Sometimes the doors are locked. We're not going to pounding our heads for those who are not receptive to it. Remember when Jesus says, if they don't welcome you, shake the dust off your feet, put them in my hands. That's where they belong, not in yours. We enter into these conflicts hopefully with a sense of gratitude that we are who we are, that God has called us in a unique way. We're not perfect, we're not Jesus, but we're cooperating to the best of our ability. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful week. God bless everyone.